I call the honourable member Jackie Dean.
Mr Speaker, look, it's a huge pleasure to rise and speak to the third reading of the Tasman District Council bill. And with due respect to the previous speaker, although this is the third reading of this bill, I do think that it requires a decent scrutiny by this House, and I'm never one to rush things. I don't think we as members should be rushing, particularly local bills. And if I reflect on some of the local bills that I personally have been associated with, and I do hope the House will indulge me just to, I can give chapter and verse. Moana Maki over the other side wants chapter and verse of some of the local bills. I don't think we should make light of the importance of local bills coming to this House, because it is a privilege for a local member to host a bill through the House. And the reason it's a privilege is because a local bill will deal with matters which might not be of great moment. Thank you, Minister. Local, which may not be of great moment to the nation, but they certainly are to the local community. The Minister is absolutely right. And so if I think about perhaps some other local bills which have been before this House, I brought one on behalf of the Waitaki District Council to do with the designation of a piece of land. Now that sounds as dry as an old chip, and on first blush, yes, it would be as dry as an old chip, except that it did mean an awful lot to that particular local community. And in fact, I'd venture to say that for a number of years it proved to be hugely divisive amongst that community, some members of which wished to see development on that land, and other members of that community wanting to see the land staying the way it was and always has been, and each of them going to council who tried to clarify that designation. And that's what we want our local authorities to do. Goodness me, we stand up in this House all the time calling on our local authorities to be precise in their deliberations and make good decisions on behalf of their communities. Well, sometimes making good decisions on behalf of their communities is not helped by some little flaw in the legislation, or in fact, as the council with the Tasman District Council, some slightly less than or suboptimal decision-making processes. Well, going back to the Waitaki District Council example, it wasn't a suboptimal decision of thank you, that's Trevor Mallard over the other side, who again is another member who is intolerant about local issues. Well, I'm kind of interested in local issues because I've got a pretty cool electorate, and I do want to talk about the importance of a local bill to their local community. So in the Waitaki with the local bill, it wasn't a matter of poor decision-making on behalf of the local authority. It was a mistake made way back in 1938 in the land registry. And so I know that Trevor Mallard doesn't have patience with this kind of detail of legislation. He can't, I think a lot of it just goes over his head, and so he puts on this big buffoonery front of, I will yield. There is a point of order.
Oh, I'm sorry. Point of order, the honourable member Eugenie Sage.
Mr Speaker, I understood we were discussing the Tasman District Council validation and recovery of certain rates bill. The Waitaki bill, which the member for Waitaki is talking about, this House passed some time ago.
Order. Thank you for drawing that to the House's attention. I think the member makes a very valid point. I'd ask the member to
thank you so much.
Come to the line.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I do appreciate the guidance. It's important. The connection that I'm making here is that this is a local bill, and it is of great matter, not perhaps to the whole Parliament. It is a good local bill, very good local bill, not of great moment to the Parliament, but certainly to the local communities. And so now I come naturally to talk about the Tasman District Council and the issues that have beset that council. So this bill is about validating rates. And if I were to perhaps expand the conversation just a little bit, validation of rates by means of a local bill in the Parliament is not ideal, it is suboptimal, but sometimes it is necessary to do that. This is one of those cases. On behalf of the local community, and I do regret that members across the House don't find value in talking about other local communities and the troubles they've had with their local bills. I do regret that people like Eugenie Sage and the member for, I don't know, Wellington somewhere, Hutt South, I do regret that they don't see value in talking around the wider issues that beset local communities.
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, I know you're not allowed to draw attention to members reading their speech, but I think you are allowed to draw attention to people reading the speeches for the wrong bills. Maybe she should read the speech for the right bill.
Can I just thank the member and tell him it's for the Speaker to recognise whether a member is reading from the bill. I call the Honourable Member Jackie Dean.
Thank you so much, Mr Speaker. And the Speaker is quite right. And of course the Speaker himself is shepherding a member's bill, or a local bill, I beg your pardon, through the House. And so at least the Speaker, unlike the member for somewhere...
The member cannot bring me into debate.
Of course. And so I do thank the Speaker for allowing me to continue with this speech. So the Tasman District Council has brought in a bill to validate rates that were incorrectly set in the past. Now, why the Parliament is taking so much time, and why I've tried to give some context around this, which I suspect will be appreciated more through the wireless than in the House, because simply the mainly list members over the other side of the House aren't as well connected with their communities. But why I have brought in some context is because in bringing a validation rates bill to the House, we are having to not quite paper over the cracks perhaps, but we are being asked as parliamentarians to put right, by means of a local bill, mistakes that were made at local authority level. And it is an important function of our Parliament, and Speaker after Speaker after Speaker, those who understand the issues, the Hutt South member accepted from that, but those that understand the issues know that Parliament is uncomfortable picking up the pieces from local government. It is our desire to have strong local government that is efficient on behalf of its ratepayers. And why do we want that? Quite simply because it's ratepayers' money. Its ratepayers deserve good, decent decision-making on behalf of their local authority, because it's their money, it's their rating, it is their services that we are dealing with. So, while Parliament is sympathetic to the Tasman District Council bringing the bill to it, we certainly don't want to see, as a Parliament, and I think for once I speak for most of us, we don't want to see too many bad decisions being made at local authority level that Parliament is then required to redress, as is the case here. So what we are dealing with here is validation of rates. Now, I pay rates, I pay lots of rates, and I'd like to know that the money that goes into my local authority quarterly, and I sure notice it going out of our bank account into the District Council rates, I want to know that that money's being spent well. I want to know that the money that is going out of my bank account into theirs is being wisely spent based on good decision-making. Now, if the members across the House think that the context around that which I've spoken about today is irrelevant or outside the scope, well, I disagree. Because I think the functions of local government, we must never forget it, and we should, when we have a case like this and are having to deal with some mistakes, we should always remember that this is not Parliament's money that we are dealing with. This is not the government's money we're dealing with. This is people of New Zealand. This is ratepayers' money, including people like me, no doubt, Louise Upston. This is our money that is being spent by our local authorities, and we want that money spent well. See, and again, Poor old Trevor Mallard, he just can't cope. He just finds that it's because he's not in touch with his community, and I think that's the basic problem with a lot of the Labour members of Parliament, actually. Most of them are list MPs, but those that are constituency members just aren't in touch with their communities, don't understand the importance. So I have great pleasure in supporting this bill to the House.
I call the honourable member Eugenie Sage. Tēnā koe, Ms Sage.